My name is Mark. By trade, I'm a low-voltage network technician and a smart home automation specialist. To put it simply, I am the guy who designs and installs complex home networks, hides wireless relays inside wall outlets, programs automated climate controls, and sets up smart security systems. My job requires extreme patience and precision. If you mess up a wiring diagram by a single millimeter, or if there's a tiny syntax error in your automation script, the system will either short-circuit or start living a mind of its own. 3 years ago, I rented a neglected 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of the city. To say it was in bad shape would be an understatement. The previous tenants had absolutely trashed the place. The wallpaper was peeling off in dirty sheets. Yellow water stains covered the ceilings. The ancient plumbing leaked from every joint, and the electrical wiring was so outdated that plugging in a vacuum cleaner and an electric kettle at the same time would instantly blow the main fuse in the hallway. The landlord was a man named Oleg. He was a petty, suspicious guy in his late 40s who worked as a low-level supervisor at a local shipping warehouse. When we signed the lease, the rent was dirt cheap, simply because no sane human being would agree to live in those conditions. "Look, Mark," Oleg told me back then, jingling the rusty old keys in his hand. "I don't have the money to fix this place up. If you want to paint the walls or change a light fixture, do it yourself. I don't care. Just pay the rent on the first of every month and don't call me about broken pipes." We locked in that cheap rental price for a strict 3-year term, and I got to work. Over the next 2 years, I poured almost all my spare time and every single dollar of my disposable income into that apartment. I did everything with my own 2 hands. I ripped out the dangerous, ancient aluminum wires and ran high-quality copper cables through the walls. I replastered the crooked surfaces, laid down modern laminate flooring, and completely replaced the rusted bathroom pipes with reliable multi-layer plumbing. Because this was my professional field, I turned that apartment into a tech masterpiece. I installed a custom underfloor heating grid, integrated hidden wireless smart relays behind the wall outlets, and mounted sleek touch-sensitive switches. I replaced the ugly, old cast-iron radiators with modern electric convection heaters hooked up to a central automation hub. The apartment looked like a page from a modern design magazine, cozy, bright, and fully automated. Oleg didn't visit the property once during those 2 years. He just checked his bank account balance on the first of the month and stayed quiet. Everything changed 3 weeks ago. The 3-year lease was nearing its expiration date, and I called Oleg to arrange the standard renewal. The very next day, he showed up at the apartment. When he stepped through the door and saw the flawless stretch ceilings, the hidden ambient LED lighting, the pristine bathroom tiles, and the custom built-in kitchen, his eyes practically popped out of his head. He walked through the rooms, running his fingers along the smooth walls, clicking my smart switches, a look of pure, greedy envy spreading across his face. "Well, you set yourself up pretty nicely here, Mark," Oleg muttered, rubbing his hands together. "This is practically a luxury condo now. So here's the deal. The rental market has changed. Starting next month, the rent is going up by 300%, and I'll need a new security deposit equal to 2 months of the new rate." I felt my stomach tighten. "Oleg, we had an agreement. I spent thousands of dollars of my own money and 2 years of hard physical labor fixing this dump. I did the plumbing, the floors, the electrical grid. All of it increased the value of your property." Oleg just laughed, a smug, dismissive smirk on his face. "An agreement? The lease is up, kid. Any improvements you made legally belong to the property now. That's how real estate works. If you don't like the new price, you have until the 31st to pack your bags and get out. But honestly, looking at this place, I think I can get an even higher price from a wealthy corporate tenant." I realized right then that arguing with him was completely useless. Oleg wasn't just a tough landlord. He was a greedy parasite who waited for me to finish the hard work so he could steal my labor and cash in on it. 2 days later, on a Tuesday afternoon, I came home from work to grab some tools. As I walked up to the front door, I noticed something strange. The brass deadbolt lock had been completely replaced. I slid my key into the keyhole, but it wouldn't turn. Before I could even pull out my phone, a text message from Oleg chimed on my screen. "I found a new tenant who is moving in this weekend. They paid cash up front. Your personal belongings have been boxed up and put into the building's basement storage locker. Don't bother coming inside. Your security deposit is being withheld to cover the cost of changing the locks and unauthorized structural modifications to my apartment. Have a nice life." I stood in the cold, dimly lit apartment hallway, staring at the locked door. My hands were steady, and my face was completely calm. Oleg thought he had just executed a flawless, greedy eviction. He thought he was inherited a premium, smart tech apartment for free. What the warehouse supervisor didn't understand was that a smart home is not just a collection of nice switches and pretty lights. A smart home is an ecosystem governed by code and software protocols. He had successfully changed the physical lock on the door, but he didn't own the network. And I had left a massive digital trap wired directly into the very fabric of that apartment. Oleg wasted no time. Less than 48 hours after throwing my life in cardboard boxes, a moving truck pulled up to the curb. My neighbors later told me that his new tenants were a high-earning, meticulous young couple, a software consultant named David and his fiancée, Sarah, who worked entirely from home and demanded absolute comfort. They had gladly agreed to Oleg's inflated premium rental price, convinced they had found a high-tech paradise. Oleg personally escorted them inside, proudly showing off his state-of-the-art smart apartment, pocketing a massive cash stack for the first month's rent and an upfront double security deposit. I was sitting in my rented studio apartment across town, a cup of black coffee on my desk, watching the entire scenario unfold on my laptop screen. Oleg had changed the heavy brass lock on the front door, but he didn't have the slightest clue how digital infrastructure worked. When I rewired the apartment, I hadn't hooked up the smart devices to the landlord's legacy analog circuits. Every single light fixture, the underfloor heating elements, the bathroom ventilation fans, and the kitchen outlets were wired through hidden, enterprise-grade wireless smart relays tucked deep inside the wall boxes. More importantly, I hadn't used a commercial cloud hub like Google Home or Apple HomeKit that could be easily factory reset. The entire apartment operated on a local, encrypted Zigbee mesh network, running off a miniature, fanless Raspberry Pi server that I had physically hidden inside a hollow cavity behind the kitchen drywall. The apartment's main Wi-Fi network was gone, but my hidden server was still broadcasting a cloaked cellular uplink. I had absolute, root-level administrative access to every single watt of electricity running through that property. The first phase of my digital reclamation began on Friday night at exactly 2:15 a.m. David and Sarah were fast asleep. Using a basic automation script on my laptop, I initialized a command to the bedroom and hallway smart relays. The bedroom ceiling lights instantly flashed to 100% maximum brightness, blinding and freezing cold, while the bathroom extraction fan turned on, roaring at full operational speed. 3 seconds later, everything went pitch black and dead silent again. According to the system log, the bedroom motion sensors picked up immediate, chaotic movement. 5 minutes later, when the couple finally settled back into bed, the script ran again. Flash, roar, silence. By Saturday morning, the real psychological warfare began. I targeted the underfloor heating grid and the digital convection heaters. I initiated a loop that raised the floor temperature in the living room to a scorching 32 degrees Celsius 90 degrees Fahrenheit, while turning the bedroom convection heaters down to a freezing 15 degrees Celsius 59 degrees Fahrenheit. The automated climate system was completely fighting against itself. At 11 a.m., David tried to plug his expensive espresso machine into the kitchen island outlet to make breakfast. The moment the machine drew power, my server detected the sudden spike and flipped the specific wireless relay to open. The outlet went completely dead. David moved the machine to the dining wall, dead. He tried the living room. It worked for exactly 45 seconds before cutting out. Through the cloaked network telemetry, I could see David frantically trying to flip the physical circuit breakers in the hallway panel box. He flipped them up and down, but it did absolutely nothing. The physical breakers were perfectly fine. The invisible digital gates behind the drywall were the ones refusing to let the current pass. By Monday afternoon, I decided to introduce them to the acoustics of the apartment. When I installed the stretch ceilings, I used a modern tension clip system that required a balanced air pressure loop to remain completely silent. I activated a hidden, variable speed auxiliary fan inside the drop ceiling utility closet. The sudden shift in airflow caused the entire vinyl ceiling membrane in the main living room to vibrate, producing a low-pitched, unyielding, demonic hum that resonated through the walls. It was impossible to pinpoint, impossible to ignore, and it made concentrating on a Zoom call completely out of the question. At 4 p.m., my screen logged a massive surge in local cell traffic from the apartment. David was calling Oleg through the smart thermostat's integrated microphone, a feature I had originally installed for hands-free voice commands. I listened to the pure panic in the tenant's voice. "Oleg, this place is a nightmare," David shouted into his phone, his voice echoing in the humming living room. "The lights are turning on and off by themselves in the middle of the night. The floors are burning our feet, but the bedroom is freezing. Half the outlets don't work, and there is this horrific, vibrating noise coming from inside the ceiling. My fiancé refuses to sleep here another night. You told us this was a premium tech apartment." "Calm down, David. I'm sure it's just a loose wire or a fuse," Oleg stammered, his arrogant warehouse voice cracking with anxiety. "I'll call a standard local electrician to come look at it tomorrow morning." I smiled, taking a slow sip of my coffee, and typed out a new script. Oleg could call every legacy analog electrician in the city. They could bring their multimeters, their screwdrivers, and their wire strippers, but they would find absolutely nothing wrong with the copper. They were looking at an analog problem, but they were trapped inside a digital cage. On Tuesday morning, Oleg arrived at the apartment accompanied by a grizzled, legacy electrician named Stan, who had 40 years of experience repairing standard apartment grids. According to the hidden microphone feed, Stan spent 3 hours carrying a heavy canvas tool bag through the rooms, pulling off outlet covers, unscrewing light switches, and poking his multimeter prongs into the copper terminals. "I'm telling you, Oleg, the copper is perfect," Stan muttered, scratching his head as he stared at the breaker box. "The voltage hitting the main panel is a flawless 230 volts. The breakers aren't tripping, but the moment I put my meter on the actual kitchen outlet terminals, there's zero current. It's like the electricity is just vanishing inside the walls before it reaches the brass contacts." "That's impossible, Stan," Oleg barked, sweat dripping down his collar as David and Sarah stood over him with crossed arms. "The wiring is brand new. The previous tenant did the whole grid." "Well, whoever did it wasn't using standard blueprints," Stan snapped, packing up his tools. "Everything is running through some weird, tiny plastic modules buried deep behind the drywall boxes. I can't bypass them without tearing out half the plaster and cutting open the custom built-in kitchen. That's going to cost you thousands of dollars in structural demolition, and I don't touch that tech stuff anyway. Call a specialist." The moment Stan walked out the door, David snapped. "We're done, Oleg," David said, his voice dropping into a cold, dangerous corporate tone. "We've been here less than 5 days, and we haven't slept a full night. Our food is rotting because the refrigerator outlet keeps cutting out, my internet connection is dropping, and my fiancé had to stay at a hotel last night because the bedroom was freezing. This place is legally uninhabitable. David, please, let me find another guy," Oleg pleaded, his greedy demeanor completely shattering. "No," Sarah chimed in, stepping forward. "We paid you $3,600 in cash for the first month's rent and the double security deposit. We want a full, immediate refund, and we're moving our furniture out by tonight. If that cash isn't back in our account by 5 p.m., my father's legal firm is filing a formal consumer fraud complaint with the housing authority, and we will sue you for damages to our remote working schedules." They slammed the bedroom door shut, leaving Oleg standing entirely alone in the vibrating, humming living room. Through the telemetry logs, I watched Oleg walk out into the hallway. 2 minutes later, my personal phone began to ring. It was Oleg. I let it ring until the absolute last second before picking up. I didn't say a word. "Mark? Mark, is that you?" Oleg's voice was unrecognizable. The smug, arrogant landlord who had thrown my life into cardboard boxes was completely gone. He sounded like a broken man standing in the ruins of a bad gamble. Listen, I think there was a huge misunderstanding about the lease renewal. I was under a lot of stress with the warehouse, and, well, the new tenants are having some major technical issues with the apartment. The lights are acting crazy, and the floors aren't working. That's a shame, Oleg. I replied, my voice completely flat and relaxed. But like you said on Tuesday, the lease is up, and I'm out. The apartment and all its internal systems belong to the property now. Why are you calling me? Call an electrician. I did call an electrician, Mark. He said you put some kind of hidden digital locks inside the walls. Oleg cried out, his voice cracking in desperation. The tenants are threatening to sue me. They want their $3,600 back today, and I already spent most of that cash paying off my personal credit card debts. I don't have the money to pay them back or to tear open the walls. You need to come fix this. I don't need to do anything, Oleg, I said coldly. You locked me out of my own home, stole my security deposit, and threw my personal belongings into a damp basement locker like trash. You want a luxury smart apartment so you could exploit wealthy tenants? Well, now you have exactly what you paid for. Mark, please. What do you want? Oleg begged, completely broken. Tell me what it takes to make this stop. I looked at the digital clock on my laptop screen. It was 4:15 p.m. I'm opening a secure email link right now, Oleg, I stated. Inside, you will find a fully legally binding mutual lease termination and property release agreement. You're going to sign it digitally within the next 10 minutes. And then we're going to talk about my non-negotiable terms for saving you from bankruptcy. I heard Oleg's heavy, panicked breathing on the other end of the line as the notification on my laptop screen chimed. The cryptographic signature cleared. He had signed the legal release document without reading a single sentence of the fine print. He didn't have a choice. The 5 p.m. deadline from David's legal firm was ticking down like a time bomb. I signed it, Mark. It's done. Oleg yelled into his phone, his voice cracking with pure desperation. Now, please, for the love of God, turn the electricity back on. Tell me what else you want. Here are my final terms, Oleg, I said, my voice steady, calm, and absolute. First, you're going to e-transfer the $3,600 directly to David's account right now to stop the lawsuit. I know you don't have the cash, so you can draw it from your personal savings or take a high-interest cash advance. I don't care how you get it, but it needs to clear in their account within 5 minutes. $3,600? Oleg groaned, sounding like he was physically suffocating. That ruins me, Mark. That's my entire emergency fund. Second, I continued, completely ignoring his whimpering. You are going to issue me a brand new, ironclad, 5-year lease agreement for the apartment. But we are resetting the parameters. Because of the severe structural and electrical instability of the property, the new rent is fixed at exactly 50% of my original rate, locked in with zero inflation clauses for 60 months. Third, you will return my original security deposit in full by tonight, and you will personally carry every single one of my cardboard boxes back up from the basement locker and place them neatly inside the living room. 50%. That doesn't even cover the building's monthly maintenance fees. Oleg screamed, You are robbing me blind. You try to capitalize on my hard work and throw me onto the street to line your pockets. Oleg, I replied coldly. You have exactly 60 seconds to accept, or I delete my administrative access tokens, shut down the wireless mesh grid permanently, and let your property rot as an unlivable, unsellable concrete shell. 59, 58. Okay. Stop. I accept. I'll sign the new lease. I'll pay the tenants. I'll move the boxes. Oleg cried out, completely crushed. The greedy slumlord had been entirely dismantled by his own parasite logic. 10 minutes later, the system logs on my laptop began to shift. The $3,600 transfer to David and Sarah cleared. On my screen, the tracking telemetry showed the young couple packing their final bags and walking out of the front door, relieved to escape the haunted high-tech trap. I sat back, opened my master automation interface, and executed a complete system restoration script. With a single keystroke, The low-frequency acoustic hum inside the ceiling instantly vanished. The underfloor heating grid cooled down to a perfect, comfortable 21 degrees Celsius, 70 degrees Fahrenheit. The custom built-in kitchen outlets snapped back online, providing a flawless, steady current, and the designer ambient LED lights dimmed into a warm, welcoming golden glow. The apartment was completely balanced once again. An hour later, I pulled my car up to the front of the building. Oleg was standing on the sidewalk, his shirt soaked in sweat, struggling to carry the final heavy cardboard box of my tools up the concrete stairs. He didn't dare look me in the eye. He just set the box down inside the hallway, handed me the brand new set of brass keys to the deadbolt, and slunk away down the corridor like a beaten dog. I stepped across the threshold, closed the heavy door behind me, and locked it. The apartment was pristine, silent, and beautifully automated. I pulled out my phone, opened my custom smart home application, and updated the root administrative password one final time, locking the entire ecosystem down forever. Thank you so much to everyone in our storytelling community for tuning in to this tactical household reclamation. If this everyday rental battle reminded you that tech literacy and precision engineering will always outsmart greedy landlords and parasitic landlords, make sure to smash that like button right now. Leave your thoughts and rental horror stories in the comments below. Hit that notification bell and subscribe to the channel for more real-world strategic executions. Stay precise, secure your perimeter, and I will see you in the next update. Take care.